Hello, everyone. This is WGM Sabina Foisor. Very excited to bring you another episode of Class in Session. Our today's guest is Kyla Zhao, the author of May the Best Player Win. She's a Singaporean-born author and advocate for Asian representation in literature, but in the same time, she graduated from Stanford University with a master's in communications and a bachelor's in psychology. I'm very excited to hear more about her chess book, May the Best Player Win. Kyla, thank you so much for accepting my invitation to our podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm so excited.
Tell me a little bit more about yourself and what inspired you to write about chess right now.
Yeah, so I grew up in Singapore, and then after high school, I moved to California to attend Stanford University. Like you said, graduated with degrees in communication and psychology in 2021. Now I work at a tech company in Silicon Valley, and I also write novels on the side. And May the Best Player Win, my children's chess novel, is my third published book. So that's been very exciting. But it's my first novel about a chess player. And I drew some of the inspiration from my own life as a competitive chess player. When I was growing up in Singapore, I played scholastic chess throughout elementary and middle school. I was also a member of Singapore's national junior squad, and I even interned at the Singapore Chess Federation for a few months. So chess was a really big part of my life when I was younger. But sometime in middle school, I think the pressure of competition, of wanting to win, it all got too much. And also because I was one of the few female players in a very male-dominated landscape, I felt like I needed to prove myself more, that I needed to win in order to justify that I was good enough to play chess, that I was good enough to call myself a chess player. And so ultimately, it all got too much for me, and so I had to take a step back, and I ended up dropping out of competitive chess after middle school. And I just never played again. And it was only many, many years later when I was already a third year student in university, and it was the pandemic, it was 2020. And that was when I began thinking about chess again.
Very interesting. And tell me a little bit about how you felt the this pressure that you're mentioning as a female player. Was it something you felt you put yourself on? Was it your family? Was it your peers? How did everything influence you to eventually stop playing?
Yeah, I think it was a series of really, really small things, and it gradually just built up into something bigger. So when I was playing chess, no one ever came up to me and said, "Oh, you're a girl, you can't play chess." There was never something dramatic like that. It was always small things. So for instance, if I was playing against a boy and the boy lost to me, his friends would make fun of him and say, "How can you lose to a girl?" Or if a boy finds out that he was playing against me, like I've had times when boys would be like, "Yes, I'm playing against a girl," because they think it's an easy win. And so growing up, the more I heard things like that, and also the more I observed about how few female chess players there were. And as I got older, the number just kept going down. And so I saw all of that and I began to question, why is it that people think female chess players aren't good enough, that we are automatically worse than the guys? And so that began to eat away at me from the inside. And I felt that because people think I wasn't good enough, maybe just because I'm a girl, I have to work extra hard to prove myself. I have to win to prove myself. And so I put a lot of pressure on myself to win, to get trophies, to end up on a podium, to get a result that would justify that I deserve to belong in the world of chess. And so that pressure just got more and more overwhelming, and slowly I began to lose focus of why I was even playing chess in the first place. It was no longer because playing chess made me happy. It was no longer about having fun. It became purely about winning and getting the evidence I needed to prove to everyone else and also to prove to myself that I was good enough.
And what made you choose your path. So do you feel that the fact that you felt so much pressure with chess, do you feel that was something that took you on a path to something that was going to give you a career where those pressures wouldn't be there, or across your path of getting to where you are today, a writer, you're working in Silicon Valley. I know you've done a lot of editorial work, and you also studied psychology. So do you feel that you chose your fields based on the experience that you had growing up with chess?
Yeah, it's interesting because, with the chess game, when you're sitting across the table from someone else, there are only really three results. You either win, you lose, or you draw. And in scholastic chess, I think, especially when you're younger, there weren't really that many draws. So usually it was going to be a decisive result. You either walk away a winner or a loser. And so, as a child, when I was younger, I wasn't emotionally mature enough to handle losses. I took every loss really hard because I tied my sense of self-worth and my need for validation so much to the results that I was getting. And so for a child, as a child, when I know that there's a 50% chance I'm going to be losing a game, like that kind of pressure got very overwhelming for me. It's different now because, for instance, for writing, there's not really such a thing as winning or losing. You can write a really good book or you can write a book that's not so good. But either way, that is a spectrum. It's not like a binary yes or no, you're winning, you're losing. And so I think in a way, writing felt like something safer for me.
Hmm.
Going to school, working at a tech company, like all of those were comfortable and safe. And it didn't put me in that sort of environment where I had to constantly face the risk of being a loser, basically. So yeah, I don't know if my time in chess made me very consciously choose the paths that I'm going on now. But I do think that, in hindsight, now that I'm like 10 years older than when I dropped out of chess, I look back now and I realize that if I had the emotional maturity at the time to deal with losses, maybe I would have continued in chess. But at that time, I didn't. And that's also a big reason why I wrote this book, because I think that younger players should learn how to deal with losses and how to deal with the possibility of losing in a graceful way.
It's really nice to hear talk about these things because a lot of us are experiencing them, and I think it's difficult to really say what keeps some players into the game and what makes others let it go for some time and maybe come back to it later, maybe get
Mhm.
inspiration from it or not. I think all of us face it, whether we get to be stronger or not. This need to win. When I first saw your book titled, I really liked it because oftentimes when I get asked what's my favorite thing about chess, my answer usually is I love the creativity, but I also love winning. It's just something I think it's kind of hard to say you don't enjoy, but the losses are painful. And I want to ask you now about your inspirations. I know you wrote two novels before this one that were not about chess. So you mentioned to me it was around, I think, 2021 that you started thinking about writing this book. Was it
The
what
end of
is
2020.
oh, 2020, sorry.
Yeah, the
Was
end
it
of it.
the COVID time kind of? What brought back the memories about chess and inspired you to write this book, and how similar is the main character to your own chess experience?
Yeah, so after I stopped playing competitive chess in middle school, I never sat down at a chessboard again, never participated in a tournament again. It was almost like chess was no longer a part of my life because towards the end, it just got so painful for me. And then during the pandemic, because we were all in lockdown, suddenly online chess became really popular. The Queen's Gambit also made the game very popular as well. And I was in my third year at university at that time. And a lot of my college friends started learning chess and playing chess because they got swept up in the craze. And then I saw how much fun they had learning chess, and even though they were terrible at it, they still enjoyed it so much. And that made me start to think about my early years playing chess, back when I wasn't even remotely good, back when I lost way more than I won, but yet I had so much fun because back then chess was just a game for me, a hobby. It wasn't something that I staked my self-worth on. And so I started, going down memory lane, trying to think of what it was like when I first started out. And I began to remember the good times, not just the bad times towards the end, but the good times when I had so much fun, when I learned so much, when I loved hanging out with my friends and playing chess with them. And so that was kind of the initial inspiration for May the Best Player Win. I asked myself, why did I stop playing chess? Like, what made me want to stop? And so, in a way, writing this story was my attempt to answer that question.
And the way you build the protagonist, Mei Li, she navigates the process of competition, but also identity. She's at the age where developing an identity and having these second guesses are quite big and quite important. How Tell me a little bit about the process of an author on how you develop a character for the book. So you have, and then how do you go about the story?
Yeah, so in a way, like I wouldn't say that Maylee is me, but I think part of her journey in the book was inspired a little bit by my own journey in chess. So like I really like what you said about how, at that age and even as an adult, you're trying to build your sense of identity. But I think it is a very common pitfall that we would tie most of our identity to one thing. As an adult, we base a lot of our identity on the jobs that we do. And when you're younger, especially when you're really good at something, when you're a prodigy, you grew up and all you hear is people telling you, you're so good at this, you're so good at this. And then you begin to think to yourself, like, yes, that is who I am. I am a very, very good chess player. But then one day you no longer get the results you want. Chess becomes a little bit harder. It's not as easy for you to win. And suddenly the identity that you have crafted for yourself in your mind it begins to crumble, and then as it crumbles, you panic. You're like, wait, what is happening? Why is this no longer so easy for me anymore? And then that's when, all the thoughts start creeping into your head, like, why am I not good enough? What's going on? What's going wrong with me? And so that was kind of the thought process and the mental, emotional journey that my character went through. She started off the book, like having won a really big trophy. People were telling her, you're so amazing at this. And then gradually she realizes that no, like chess is not easy, winning is not easy. But who am I if I'm not winning? Would people still like me? Would they still admire me and respect me if I'm not winning? And that is a question that she has to answer for herself. And ultimately, she has to find out for herself, like, even if I'm not a winner, like, does that mean that I'm not good enough?
That is true because okay, just to give a little bit from the book, as she wins this competition, she doesn't win the competition. She actually loses in the final round and of this big competition, but she still gets the trophy, and she's compared to Judith Polgar in a way, and then that's when she starts putting a lot of pressure on herself, and her school thinks she's done great, but then there's a little bit of tension between her and a really good friend and teammate who there starts being some kind of jealousy between the two, and that's where I felt that you're bringing in this identity, and then also like a little bit of gender discrimination that sometimes can happen, and not just in chess. I think in life it's hard. You mentioned earlier that boys oftentimes make jokes about them losing to a girl and not
Yeah.
feeling good about it. So I think you definitely mention a really some really good points about what struggles girls are going to. A question that I wanted to ask you regarding the book is what age do you think is the most appropriate for someone to read it in your
I
opinion?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for upper elementary to maybe lower high school levels would be a good reading range. But I've also had a lot of adults read a book as well, and then they tell me that they really enjoy it. Because at the end of the day, even though the main characters are in middle school, I think the themes it explores is something that is so relevant and relatable across all ages. Because like I said earlier, even as adult, we tie our identity to our performance at work. And then when it doesn't go well, we just think that we're not good enough as a person. And so how do we deal with that? And so learning that kind of emotional maturity is a lifelong process. And I think anyone who reads this book can see a little bit of themselves in my main characters and in their journeys and what they are learning.
I definitely have seen a lot of characters, and I found myself in it as well. I hope people do continue buying your book. I know you mentioned to me you have received quite a few awards, particularly for this book, but also for some of your others. What does it mean to you, or how does it inspire you to further write more books?
I think winning awards, getting featured in newspapers and magazines and on TV, that's always so, so nice. I appreciate it all the time. I never take it for granted. Like it's always such a joy and such an honor. But, I think what really keeps me going as an author is hearing directly from the readers, people who are reading the book, people who come up to tell me like how much the story means to them, how much comfort and joy they derive from reading words and stories and characters that I've created. Like there was this little girl in fifth grade, and her mom emails me and say that her daughter loves this book so much that for a school project, she actually made a puppet of my main character, Mei Li. And so that was incredible. Parents would send me photos of my book, and my book would be so tattered and basically falling apart because they say that their kid has read it so many times and shared it with all of his friends, and all of his friends have read it so many times. So every time I hear that, it just touches me a lot to know that my book is making an impact out there and that it is connecting with people.
It's quite interesting to hear you say that. I feel similarly as a coach when I coach someone and or I tell them something, even if it's just for a small period of time, when they come back and tell you, this is something that you said that really inspired my kid, and they did this and they sent me.
Yeah.
It just feels good. It's just the idea. Do you have any other thoughts about writing more chess novels? I know you mentioned to me you have one in the works, but it is about a completely different topic.
Completely different. Yeah. Um, just for context for anyone watching or listening to this, my next book is inspired by the mafia, so it is very different from this novel. I don't have any specific ideas yet for another chess novel. Quite a lot of people, like the readers, have come up to me and asked if I would write another book about chess because they like this one so much. If I come up with a good idea, definitely. I don't want to force it. I don't want to, try to write a book about chess just because I want to write about chess. Like I'll only write it if there's an idea that speaks to me, if there's an idea that I think would be helpful for other people to read about.
You have quite a few degrees, and you've worked in so many different um, areas. Like I know you've done like I mentioned at the beginning of this interview. You've written a bit. You've focused on psychology, on communication. You're working in tech. How do you manage to do all of these things? And which one are you the most passionate about, Kyla?
Ooh, this is a tough one. I think that as a person, I'm just very fascinated by a lot of different things. And I want to explore as much as possible. So, like you said, I'm interested in writing, I'm interested in fashion. I used to work in fashion. Now I'm interested in tech. So I do that. And then, like psychology, it's kind of all around us. So I get to experience and live it almost every single day. But yeah, I think I just like so many different things. I don't think I could just keep myself to one thing. I'll get bored pretty easily. And even in my books are all about such different things. My first book is about high society. My second book takes place in Silicon Valley at a tech startup. Third book is about chess. Next book is about the
Mafia.
mafia in the late 1940s. So all over the place, but they all reflect something that interests me, that caught my eye.
And when you're building your characters to every single one of this book, how do you know that okay, this is the right moment? I'm happy with the way it turned out. I want to release it, or is it ever finishing, or do you have some people behind you who are telling you, okay, this is good. I think we're ready to go ahead with the way you build the character.
Yeah, honestly, as an author, you're never happy with your work. Like even the day before your book goes out, or even after your book comes out, like I'll read it and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I wish I wrote this in a different way. And in a way, that's a good sign. It means that you're constantly learning and getting better and wanting to improve. And as for when the book goes out, that is a deadline set by the publisher. So when the date comes, even if you're not like 100% happy with your book has to go out. Like there's just so much writing on it at that point. But May the Best Player Win, even though it is my shortest book, it is the book that I spent the longest on. I started writing it in November 2020 and it only came out in September 2024. So almost 4 years went into it. And it was because, for a long time, I felt like it wasn't where I wanted it to be. It wasn't something that I was proud of sharing it with the public. So I wrote like 8 different drafts. I kept editing, kept rewriting it until one day I was like, okay, this is a story that I want to share with people. This is a story that I think people could benefit from reading. And that's when I kind of knew that even though I might not be 100% happy with it, I am ready to let it out and to have people read it.
Having spent so much time away from chess, did you, for writing the book, you're mentioning you spent quite a bit of time going back and forth. Did you talk to anyone in particular, chess player, I mean, to ask opinions as your book, as you were struggling to find the final version of your book? I know Carissa has spent a bit of, she wrote a really beautiful thing about your book, and she was excited. I was just curious, since she is going to Stanford too, if you have, if she has, if you had any communications with her or some other chess players.
So the book that Carissa read was the final book.
Hmm.
So she didn't see all the drafts that came before that. And even though I stopped playing competitive chess after middle school, I still followed the chess world. I followed all the top players, all the top tournaments. I was still, like looking at the games, reading up on any new theories. I just wasn't competing because that was the part that scared me, competition, the risk of losing. But everything
Hmm.
else about chess, I still loved. Like I was still a chess fan, a chess geek. And so I was, like I knew the chess world, I knew the chess enough to like write about it. So yeah, and I'm always happy when someone reads it and they are like, wow, like you actually really do know chess. Like you weren't just like writing a book about chess for fun. So yeah.
No, I do love that. I do love to hear that. And since you mentioned it, and I also know you have a degree in psychology, I definitely wanted to bring this up as well. It's not related to your book, but it's related about psychology. Very, like recently, a couple of weeks ago, the Women's World Championship match took place in China. And I was curious on your thoughts on how the match finished that way. If you can give us any insights, psychology wise, what happened with Tan Zhongyi having lost 4 games back to back. If you followed that, and yeah, your thoughts psychology wise about that match.
Yeah, I did. And chess, like any other sport, at the end of the day, it is not just a contest of technique or ability. It is also a contest of mental stamina and strength. And I think, even though we would never really know what was going on in the players' heads or what was happening behind the scenes, but just by looking at the results, how Tan Zhongyi started out with the first win and then proceeded to lose like a few games in a row, it almost seemed like at some point she just had a bit of a mental collapse and she was never able to recover. And a match is also different from a tournament. In a tournament, if you lose against one person, the next game you're playing against someone else, you get to move on. In a match, it's just you and that person for like many, many games. So if you lose one game, it's much harder to bounce back. And that's something that we are seeing not just in this World Championship match, but in a lot of other World Championship matches as well. For instance, 2021, Carlsen Napple, after Napple lost game six, it felt like something that was just like a switch in the game and its tempo. Last year, I was invited by the World Chess Championship to present my book. And so I got to see all the games live. And it was so interesting seeing the players have this battle of wills almost. And as you might know, Gukesh hired one of India's most famous sports psychologists because more and more players are realizing the importance of not just being better on the board, but also being better in the mind as well. And they're paying a lot more attention to the psychological component of being a professional athlete. And that's been very interesting to see because it didn't used to always be this way. And I'm also glad that people are paying more attention to psychology, to the mental component, the emotional component of the game, especially at a time when chess players are getting younger and younger. We're starting to see more and more prodigies. We're putting them up on a pedestal. When a kid is like 3 or 5, they don't know what it's like to win and lose it like properly. So I'm glad that, we're having more conversations about it. We're paying more attention to it. And hopefully parents and coaches find a way to teach this to their kids as well.
I love that you mentioned this how important psychology is in chess. A lot of the times we're just thinking, oh, you have to be strong, and that is the only kind of advice that you're given. But you yourself having a psychology background, when someone loses a game, what kind of advice would you give them to try to come back from that?
Yeah, so there's this quote that I really like, which is failure is not the opposite of success, it is a part of success.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to lose a lot before you become the player that you want to be. And so every loss isn't a failure, it is a stepping stone, it's a learning point. And when you start to change your mindset to see it that way, that's when you are giving yourself the permission that it's okay to lose because it's just going to bring you one step closer to your goal. And that's something I learned in my psychology class, the importance of mindset. There was this really interesting study where they did this study, I think, with a group of hotel mates. And then they divided them into two groups. And then for one group of hotel mates, they told them, okay, you're just doing a job, you're cleaning the rooms. And then for the other group, they were like, yes, you're cleaning the rooms, but also think about it. You're basically getting free exercise, you're doing free cardio, you're going to get fitter. And then, so they did this for a few weeks. And then by the end of the experiment, the first group that only had the impression that, okay, I'm just doing my job that I'm being paid to do, like they were on average less fit and less happy than the other group, which saw it as more as exercise. So even though both groups were doing the exact same thing for the exact same length of time, the group with a better mindset, a more positive mindset, saw more positive results. And I think that's just a sign of how important mindset is in shaping our attitude towards something, and how much we get out of it.
No, that's a wonderful example that you gave. Definitely gonna keep it for future. As coach myself, and I hope a lot of people who are watching, that might be some parents or kids who are watching. I hope they really listen to the words you said regarding failures as being part of success. Like I always like to use inspirational words like that because it's of course much easier to say those things, but when you find the right examples to give people and to let them know that it's not the end of the world. And usually when you experience a loss, you can definitely, that you're gonna have more losses. You're definitely gonna
Yeah.
have more losses. That will not be the only one. But if you actually take the learning process from it, you will actually be able to improve to your path towards success rather than
Yeah.
not, right? Like it's
Yeah.
just something, it's something super important. And any particular advice besides that example that you would have for parents who are listening to our podcast and who might read your book too? Just additional advice on how do you think, having had the experience as a kid who was struggling through balancing identity and wish to win and wanting to feel good, having gone through that, but also having gone through your psychology work, is there something specific that you think parents can do, or coaches, in order to continue supporting their own kids to overcome these difficulties?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really glad you asked this. Because back at Stanford, I was doing research with a psychologist who specialized in child developmental psychology. And one thing that I learned from the very beginning is that when you're complimenting a child, don't compliment them on their results, compliment them on their effort. Don't say, "Oh, this is such a nice drawing that you created." Instead, say, "I really like the way you colored this with a pink crayon," for instance, something that's within their control. And so it's the same with chess. Like, don't compliment them on the result. Don't say, "I'm so proud of you for winning a medal. I'm so proud of you for coming in first." Instead, compliment them on their effort, something that they can control how much they want to put in. For instance, you could say, "I'm so proud of you that even in the final game, when you were down a piece, you didn't stop fighting. I'm so proud of you that your coach showed you this tactic yesterday and you remembered to apply it today." And so when you start complimenting them on their efforts, they don't they will be less likely to base their self-worth on the result. Because, I mean, as a parent, as a coach, you know that even if your child doesn't become a winner, it's okay. You're still going to love them the same. But for a child, if they're always being praised and getting compliments on the results they achieve, they start to think to themselves, if I don't get these results, are people going to love me less? Are they going to think I'm not good enough? And that you don't want your child to fall into that kind of mental trap.
Where were you when I was growing up?
Oh my gosh, I don't know.
No, seriously, I love that advice. I mean, I feel, looking back at myself as a child, going through these things that you're mentioning, both in our interview, but also in the book that May is going through. I just really feel that having had those kind of talks with my family maybe would have helped me more to have more self-worth, to feel that I'm making them proud. I have personally felt oftentimes that I'm not making my dad particularly proud, even if I was doing well, because I was putting, exactly as you say, my achievements or my success. It was just about winning, and not as much. I wasn't really feeling this need of, not need, sorry. I wasn't feeling the idea that I did something good. I learned this yesterday. I could do it today. I have experienced it more as a coach when I show some of my students a game that I really like with a specific theme. And then when they can come back a week later or 2 weeks later and they show it to me themselves, like, "Remember, Sabina, when you showed me this idea with the space? Look, I played."
Yeah.
And obviously the game is not perfectly played. Okay, as a coach and as a player, but I try to do similarly to what you have explained, and tell them I'm so proud of you for utilizing something that we learned in class.
Exactly.
It's just, you're right. You can see it on their face too, because sometimes they just want to show you that they won, and you don't want to tell them, "Well, you didn't play a good game," but you
Yeah.
want them to have these things that they remember, that, "Oh, you did a good thing. Like, you found a fork. That's great."
Mhm.
Or, "You found this mating net that we looked at the other day." Or, "Wow, you employed a specific, opening that we saw." So those are such great advice. I really hope this is going to inspire some coaches and parents, because it's really something that that you can do to help to continue to support your child to success, and really maybe go through losses in an easier way, let's say. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love that.
because
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, sometimes winning and losing a game that is out of your control, the game's final result, are determined by factors that you cannot entirely control. But whether you choose to fight on, whether you choose to apply something that you've learned, whether you choose to do your chess practice and your chess exercises and puzzles, that is something entirely within the player's control. And so I think that's the thing that they should be complimented on and celebrated for.
I love this idea, and celebration for everything is great. I wish we could
Every
also have.
success, no matter how small, should be celebrated.
What about losses? Should losses be celebrated if you did something good?
I think when you lose, you want to always make sure that you did not lose for nothing. A loss should never just be a loss. You should be able to walk away from a loss with a certain lesson, a certain learning point, so that, you're like even a loss in that way can be a success if you learn something from it.
That is so true. I'm so glad you made those points, because we struggle sometimes so much to inspire others, and just being able to find better ways. I believe, as both you as a writer and other people as coaches, we want to find ways to continue supporting others to play chess. Like, at some
Yeah.
point, it won't be just about you; it will be about leaving a legacy behind. And I feel what you have tried to do with the book, and also the way you talk about chess, you're trying to share your knowledge in such a way that inspires others to continue not going through similar mistakes that we've made in the past, but continue improving up to a point that it makes them happy, and they continue enjoying playing chess, and it's a pleasurable process, rather than not really playing anymore or something.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, exactly.
And talking about going back to the book for a little bit, what I enjoyed also about your book is the fact that you titled each chapter with a chess theme. Tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about how that came about, and yeah.
Yeah, so that was actually so in the very beginning, in the first few drafts, all I did was number it, like chapter one, two, three, four, five. So that was really boring. And then I think by like draft five, that was when I got the idea, or someone gave me the idea of what if you were to title it after a chess tome? Like that could be really fun. This is a children's novel, like try to add in a more fun element. And I was like, huh, okay, I could do that. But by this point, like every chapter, like I really know what every chapter would be about. So I was working backwards. I would read a chapter and be like, okay, what is the best chess term that could sum this up? So that wasn't actually always very easy to do, to find a chess term that was, very understandable, but also that would kind of foreshadow what was going to happen in that chapter. But I think in the end, I managed to do that. So yeah, hopefully that worked out well. And even though this is a book about a chess player, I also wanted it to be like for people with zero chess knowledge to be able to read and enjoy it. So at the start of every chapter, I also included a very brief explanation of what the chess term means. And yeah, hopefully that makes it easier to follow.
No, I really enjoyed it, because, like, at the beginning, I didn't pay attention to it because I was very excited about going on and reading, and getting to the end and see, is there gonna be some other kind of story besides, the chess part? Is she gonna
Yeah.
win? Is she going? What's gonna happen at the end?
Mhm.
And then I went back and I was like, wait a second, I see sacrifice. Oh, I see blunder. Ah,
Yeah, they're
okay.
not just random words.
It's not just, obviously it's not. I mean, for it's not just random, but I think you were able to to put one of these like very important chess terminology inside the book in such a way that it would get some people interested in going back, and or even if they don't know chess, as you mentioned, they could go and figure out, wait, what is this exactly? And then maybe hopefully they would check out some positions that would have one of those chess motifs, or like if it was a sacrifice. I don't even know which one was my favorite specifically,
Oh,
but I
I have
did.
a favorite.
You have a favorite?
Yeah, my favorite is actually the chapter titled Zugzwang.
Zixuan?
That's because Zugzwang is just one of my favorite chess words. My last name starts with Z, and it's always hard finding words that start with Z. And then Zugzwang has like a double Z, so I got so excited when I first heard it as a child. And in fact, there's this character in my book, the coach, Mr. Wang. His name comes from the last four letters of Zugzwang.
I remember when we had a conversation at first, you did mention that, so I love that. And you use both Zugzwang and Zwischenzug too
Yeah,
as titles, the two Z words in chess they're pretty cool actually. And
yeah.
you could have said in between move, but Zwischenzug just
It just sounds cool,
it,
you know. I feel like a kid would get such a kick out of hearing that, but I cannot pronounce it. I'm
oh.
impressed that it just rolls off your tongue so smoothly, but like I cannot pronounce that second one.
Okay, that no worries, no worries. But anyways, I enjoyed those very much, and I tried, for our interview to pick a couple of those titles and have a couple examples that at the end of our conversations, hopefully the audience will stick around and check them out. I think it's really cool to be able to go through a book. That's why I was asking you whether you have other plans for potentially writing another chess book, because using that terminology. So at first, when I saw the terminology, I thought, okay, where's the position? I want to see the position, and that's why I asked you in case you had in mind any idea to at some point have some positions there where the people could also solve it. But you told me not yet, but I certainly hope that you will
Fingers
keep
crossed.
you will still have a chess book inspiration in mind, and you will consider writing about chess, because I think we need more stories, and we need more people who know about chess to write about chess, so that you can get the inside perspective of how it feels to be a chess player at the beginning, and the
Yeah.
struggles that we're going through at different ages. Tell me a little bit also about chess, and I do notice that you're often like you're focusing on identity as well, and stereotypes, and do you feel that, like, how did that come about for you to talk about that specific
Yeah.
topic?
I think, kind of like what you said earlier, when you're younger, you're just trying to figure out who you are. You don't actually know who you are yet, but in times when you don't know something, when you're uncertain about something, it's very easy to default to shortcuts, to stereotypes about yourself or about other people. And like, I don't think that's a good thing to do, because you're pigeonholing yourself, you're pigeonholing other people, you're not giving people the freedom to explore different facets of yourself. Like, I would never want to be stereotyped as just a tech worker, or just an author, or just a fashion lover, because all of them are parts of me, them and many other parts as well. And so that's why I pay so much attention to identity and to challenging and confronting stereotypes. And first of all, recognizing stereotypes when you see them, because I think they just hold people back. I think they hold people back from getting to know one another better. Yeah, and it's something that matters a lot to me.
It's thanks for saying that. I remember in school when I was studying too, stereotypes have been the kind of topic that's sometimes difficult to address. Is sometimes it's difficult, and when we come from so many different backgrounds, you have the background like your cultural background, and then you have the subject, and it's so many things that influence the way we develop as people. So having conversations about that, I think, is very important. And in chess too, we want to have conversations of what is a nice way for everyone to be included and just enjoying the game, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Like no one should ever have to question or doubt whether they have the right to play chess just because of something not within their control, like their skin color or their gender. Chess is a game that's been around for like thousands of years, and it just boggles my mind that people think certain people deserve to play it, or are like better at playing it or better suited to play it than other people.
Yeah, I what I like about chess is the fact that it brings people from all the places in the world, all ages, all genders, like all identities, and just I love going to a tournament where I see a lot of faces, and like you said, like skin color and everything. It
Yeah,
just feels nice to be able to do something and
exactly.
learn about it. I'm personally very passionate about that too. Growing up in Romania, I have traveled to different places in the world, and I was always fascinated about other things that just brought, like just learning about another culture through language, but also food or music,
Yeah.
and just kind of takes everything and puts it together. And I hope to see more inspirational stories of how people take something that maybe they didn't feel good about, and then do something good to continue inspiring people to get rid of the stereotypes that only specific people should play.
Mhm.
Kyla, it was a pleasure talking to you. Was there anything else that I missed that you want to say about the book, other than, of course, we want everyone to consider purchasing it and reading it, because it is indeed a very beautifully written story that I think will inspire many. Was there anything else that I forgot to ask that you'd like to share with the audience?
No, I don't think so. I feel like you asked all the questions. Like that was amazing. I think maybe I'll just add one thing, which is that if I were to describe May the Best Player Win in one sentence, I would say it's a family-friendly version of the Queen's Gambit. So anyone of any age could read it, and you can even share it with your friends who don't play chess. So yeah, but other than that, I feel like you've covered everything, and I just hope that, people check out the book and they enjoy it, and they can always reach out to me to share their feedback or their thoughts or ideas.
Amazing. Well, actually, very. I'm so glad you said that about the family-friendly version. Because yeah, maybe Queen's Gambit is not
Yeah,
show that everyone could watch, but they will eventually. Do you have
they
plans to
will.
have this book as a movie? That was my
Oh
final
my
question.
gosh, that would be so fun. No, I hope so because I feel like kids need more sports movie, and not just sports where you're running outside, but also sports like chess. Like something that is maybe like not as physically active, but like it's also super exciting, super thrilling. So yeah, I think it would be so cool to see a chess movie for kids.
Okay, well, I hope maybe your book can be one. We'll see. But I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. I hope everyone has enjoyed this and stick around to the solutions for the positions they show. Thank you,
Thank
Kyla.
you. Thank you for having me.
I really hope you enjoyed my interview with Kyla, and you're going to consider grabbing her book, May the Best Player Win, and read it as an inspiration for yourself or for your kids and students. I wanted to utilize some of the themes she utilized as titles so that I can share a little bit of chess as well in this podcast. The first one was Opening and Blunder. There's two separate titles there, but I'm putting them all in one game. Something very important, and I notice especially at the start a lot of players make a mistake with, is in this position after white plays the move knight f3, which attacks the pawn in e5. Black typically should respond with the move knight to c6. Maybe d6 is another move, knight f6, the Petrov. But something you should definitely not do is this move pawn to f6. This is a blunder that leads to weakening the king, and it's an idea we definitely want to avoid, as white can simply sacrifice the knight. Knight takes e5, pawn takes, and now the move queen to h5. Giving a check, black has two ways to stop the check, with g6 or king e7. If g6 is played, we're going to capture in e5, allowing for a check. Rook, queen e7, but guess what? This does not pin the king. We can simply capture the rook, and after queen e4, white can simply go king to d1 and then proceed with the development and be super happy with the extra material. If in this position after queen h5 check, black were to play king e7, then white can simply capture this pawn. So we have sacrificed a piece for two pawns, but now we are getting what is called the initiative, or developing the pieces with tempo, and black won't be able to escape. If king g6, then we can give queen f5 check, king h6, and here we have various ways for white to win, either with d4 or h4, and this king eventually will get mated. So this is the kind of opening blunder you do not want to make. Going on to the next position that I had prepared for you, it's actually from the Women's World Championship that just took place a couple of weeks ago. And this is from game 2, where Tan Zhongyi won her first game in the match. In this specific rook endgame, white has the opportunity to go king c6 or king d6. And both moves make sense, but please stop the video and think about what is the correct move for white here. I hope you chose right. The move was king d6. Though it may seem that king c6 is the right approach, unfortunately it allows black to save themselves, because this rook will actually get a better placement to the side of the pawn. We can give this check because obviously there's a threat of checkmate. We're going to check, force white's king to get to d6, where it could have gone in the first place, but now we get to make the move h2. And what's happening right now is that black will be able to give a bunch of checks to the side of the pawn and behind this king, and by the time you go to grab the f pawn, this king will enter in front of the d pawn, eventually win it, and as soon as you're ready to actually try to promote, the rook will just give you checks or attack your pawn, and you'll never be able to move the rook away from here to actually support your own pawn to promote. For example, such a line could happen: king d8, king g6. Let's give a checky. King f7, now king to d7. You're going to attempt to go f6, no worries, we're going for your pawn. You have to go king f8 to push f7. Of course, you might like to go king e8 and just not be in front of the pawn when that pawn is going to be pushed, but you're going to have to deal with this. And this is your only move, so we're going right back to the previous position. So that's why you have to go king f8, we're going to capture f7, and now all black has to do is just bring the king back to d7 to keep white's king restricted, and if you go there to try to promote, we're simply checking you. Going to the side will not help, and going to the other direction also doesn't necessarily help, because we always have a check and return. So that's the reason why in that particular position, king d6 was the correct move. Now, after this move, you do not have the opportunity to improve the position of the rook and push the pawn forward. So king b8 was played. In case of rook h1, an easy way for white to win is simply check. But we could also go, for example, king to e6 directly. We don't actually need the check. We could just go king e6. And for example, if h2, white can simply capture the pawn, and we don't actually have the same opportunity to get the rook to the side. So now d6, king e8, rook e7 check maybe. The rook will protect this pawn if needed, but also can simply be placed to g2 to help support that pawn to promote. Playing on a couple more moves. We're first protecting this because we don't want them to take it. And now, since they go back to d8, we can just go d7. This is actually Zwischenzug. If the king moves, we promote. If the rook moves, we get to capture that pawn. So the game continued king b8, and it was very easy for white to proceed to winning this. All she has to do is push the d pawn forward, and there's no way for black to actually improve the h pawn. Now rook h3, very important move, and a little check to push the king away, and rook on second rank to make sure black's rook will not escape. And now rook e2, followed by king e7 and promotion. Going on to the next game, this was a position where I thought white missed a slightly nicer opportunity to win. This was actually not played in the game. Bishop f6 is my variation, king f5, and now you want to try to find a very nice move that would put black in Zugzwang. And the correct move is rook to d4. Check out this king. It has no escape, so now what we want to do is play the move rook f4. In case this bishop moves away, what we can do is another Zwischenzug, rook to e4. Kind of a cute way of keeping black's king restricted, threatening rook e5 checkmate. And if you're gonna try to stop that, well, we can go c7, c8 queen, deflecting the rook so that we can mate you. There isn't so much that black can do. Probably this might be the best way to allow a beautiful mate. Now, a couple of my favorite themes in general in chess, but also in the book as a topic, were stalemate, Zwischenzug, and fortress. So that's what you're going to see in the next positions. This is actually from a game from famous composer Johann Affeck, who happens to be also a good friend. And basically, you see this endgame. White is up a pawn, and you might get scared. What's going to happen? Well, there's a way to actually stalemate yourself. How are we going to do that? Make sure you pause the video and find the correct solution. Rook g6 first. We're attacking this pawn because we know if we get that pawn, this king will be close enough to actually stop this pawn from advancing. White's going to play check. We go in the corner. White's improving the next pawn, and guess what? We're just sitting and waiting. Your king cannot move because you promote. So in order for you to actually improve the position, you gotta move this rook somewhere to the side. Once you do that, we go rook to d3, attacking the pawn. You're going to say, of course I'm going to push it. Now I'm threatening rook b8 check and promotion. And if you take, I promote anyways. And that's gonna be a discovered check. But unfortunately for you, here comes the stalemate. Rook takes d7. Once the rook recaptures, we got no more moves. Next topic, Zwischenzug, in between move. Very important in chess. So in this position, with white, the best move is to try to support this pawn to promote, right? But how are you going to do it? Well, we need to be very careful. So we're going to go c6, trying to support the pawn to advance. Bishop c5. c7, threatening promotion, and black out of nowhere comes up with this move. Bam, check. And you're going to think, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to me now? Because, you know, if I move my king, they can take my knight. So what do? We're going to play the move knight to f5. And we stop the check. Now, black might capture here, and they're thinking, well, you're pinned and you cannot promote. So, well, everything is under control. Why wouldn't they take this knight? Of course, they could take that knight too, but then we go king e2, and we're threatening to promote. And when you go back, we're going to promote anyways. This is a draw. But in that position, after knight f5, bishop takes e7. What is the move that black probably missed here? Well, it was a study, so it was specially created. Promotion to queen. I'm not going to check you. I know I cannot do it. I'm pinned. When you capture, knight e7, and this is a draw. Lastly, a study by the famous composer Troitsky. In this position, it seems that black is going to win because this pawn is really close to promoting, and our knight is not going to be ready to stop it in time. We can also not play king g1 because our knight is hanging. So what do? We need to come up with a way to draw. I always love these fortresses, and yes, fortresses do exist in chess. We're going to start with the move knight c6 as you push the pawn forward. Like I said, we have no path to really stop the pawn, so we're going to take the bishop, d2, knight to b5, d1 queen, and now
for the final move, knight to c3. This knight is headed to e4, and you may believe me or not, the black king will be stuck and you won't be able to actually escape. If you think you're being fancy by giving me this check, queen d6 check, I'm just gonna go king h1, and guess what? You cannot go king g5 or king g3. If black's king could have escaped from there, then maybe black would have some chances to win. But since the king cannot move due to knight e4 check, this is going to be white's next move, and then the king will just move around these 3 squares, and there's no way for black to progress. I certainly hope you enjoyed these, and certainly hope you enjoyed these podcasts. I'm looking forward to the next one. Don't forget, if you enjoy this, to give us a thumbs up and follow US Chess on all our social media accounts. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.